Welcome back to the shop. Frank here. We're working on attaching the blade to the mini dozer. Last time we set up all of the hydraulic cylinders except for one. So here's the arrangement now. We've got two lift cylinders that will lift the lower support arms, which will allow you to tilt the blade left or right, or lift both of them up to lift the blade off the ground. Got a stabilizer here to keep the blade from swinging side to side. A tilt cylinder here, which will tilt the blade assembly up, rotating it on these two pins at the back here. And then there's an angle cylinder here, which allows us to angle the blade left and right. I am still waiting for one more cylinder, the left side lower arm lift cylinder. These are not permanently attached yet. They're bolted on here. We'll eventually have some different bolts put in to hold them. Of course, we'll bolt the other side. And all of the attachment points are just tack welded at this point. And once we verify everything works properly, I'll go ahead and weld those off finally, and then we'll paint the whole blade assembly yellow. And while I'm waiting for that other cylinder, which would go on the left side over here between this hole and the hole in the lower lift arm, while I'm waiting for that cylinder to come, I have ordered all of the hoses. I measured all of the hoses using a piece of 1/4-inch fuel line that I would run. So that list of 11 hoses is up at the Napa, and they're working on putting that together. So I expect to get that in a few days, later this week. While I was waiting for that, I did take care of a couple of other minor things that hadn't prioritized up to this point. One of them is the cooling fans. There are two hydrostatic transmission cooling fans, one in the front and one in the back. I think I showed the installation. This is a switch that turns them on, so the fans will run. Uh-oh, look, we got Mr. Butchie here, or we call him Butchie Boy. He's my big boy. He and Brutus are both in the shop. It's cold outside today. I mean, it was 17 degrees this morning. And then the second thing I did was the additional set of headlights. And I installed another pair of headlights here, in addition to the two on the engine hood. I added the two more on the sides of the brush guard. And there's my Brutus. Where's my Brew? There's my Brew. Yeah, what a good boy. And of course there's the Butchie too. Good puppies. I got all of the connection points welded off. I had trouble getting some of them in the camera frame, but I've got both of the thrust brackets, both sides welded to the frame, and I've got the brackets welded to for the tilt and the angle and the other angle, and then the brace over there. This one rotates so it doesn't get welded, so I'm all set here to paint. I mean, once this stuff cools off, I'll hit the welds with a little bit of primer, and we'll be ready to paint the whole thing. One last thing I need to weld is the lower support arms, the swivel joints, the swivel ball joints on the ends of the control arms. All right, so we'll do that next. So I'm hooking up all the connectors for the hydraulics, and you know, the way the connections are on the valve body, they're all straight in. So if you want the hoses to come up from the bottom, which is the way I want to do it, you've got to put 90-degree angles on everything, and it's a little bit of a challenge because they interfere with each other. So you have to have all different lengths, so you need all different combinations of fittings to be able to, you know, get them all connected. So I've got quite an assortment here, and I think it'll work. But it's adapters stacked on each other to increase the distance they come out so that there's access to all of them. And of course then getting wrenches on all of these nuts to tighten them is another little bit of a challenge. And there's several different sizes. You need 3/4, you need 13/16, you need 7/8, you need 11/16. So you need several different size wrenches to because they're all a lot of these are different sizes. So anyway, working on getting all that set up so I can run the hoses. I got all the hoses made. They're here on the bench. So there's a total of 11 different hoses. I've got some nylon wrap that I'm thinking about putting around the hoses, but as a chafe guard or just as a cosmetic cover. But to be honest with you, I don't know whether that really is what I'm going to do. I'm thinking now it's kind of a hassle. I may just forego it and just run the hoses. I do have some brackets to support the hoses as they run forward. All of the bare metal's been primed here on the blade and the attachment points, so I'll wait for that to dry and we'll come back and paint that. I need to paint the hydraulic cylinders and these lower lift arms. These lift arms need to be primed and then painted. The hydraulic cylinders all need to be painted yellow. So I've got one more cylinder I'm still waiting for. All right, we're getting close. Get the cylinders painted and installed and hoses run, and this thing should be working. I've got the lower lift arms primed. So, and I've started on the hydraulic cylinders. Got the first coat on them. All right, so we'll come back when we can put another coat on these and keep making some progress. All right, so that's the valve, that's the supply. The supply comes into the left valve. The power beyond port off the left side of that valve comes over to the supply on the right valve. The discharge from the right valve comes back and joins with the discharge from the left valve at a T, and then they both go back to the pump. I did it this way because the power beyond valve is on the left side, and I would have to move this valve away from the tractor to get access to it, so I just switched the two sides. My original plan was to have supply come in here, discharge come to this valve, discharge from that valve come back to the pump, but need to use the power beyond port, which I've done, and so that's all the supply hoses. So the remaining hoses will all go forward to the various hydraulic cylinders. I do need to tighten up all the connections at the pump. So these are all the connections at the pump. Alright, so those are all tight. So now I can move on to the cylinder hoses. Let's see what the filter looks like. So that's done. So clearly be breathing this stuff if it weren't for a mask or respirator. But even an N95 mask will stop all the paint, but obviously won't stop the volatiles, the solvents, which I guess solvents could do more damage than the paint, though the paint will clog up your lungs. Got all the doors open. It's not as cold out as it has been, maybe 50 degrees. So I'll leave the doors open for a little bit. I've got the heater running, so after a few minutes here, most of the volatiles flash off. I'll close the doors and let the paint come up to temperature, room temperature, and dry. I did paint the lower support arms, and so we've got a bunch of stuff here that has to dry. We'll come back when it's dry and begin work on hooking up some of the, put the cylinders back on, hook up some of the hydraulic lines. All right, so all the hydraulic cylinders are installed. Next task is to run some hoses. Brew. Being a good boy, huh? Being Daddy's good puppy? Yeah. Daddy's good boy. Yeah. You're being puppy. Being a good puppy. Come here. Yeah. That's my good brew. Yeah, you're a good boy. You want a treat? Where's Butchie? Let's go get Butchie. Go get Butchie. There he is. All right. No, brew. Sit. Come on, get down. Sit. Sit. No, Butchie here. Good puppies. Brew took both of them. I went and got one back from him. Little piglet. All right, I've spent some more time today wrapping up some tedious work here. I didn't record it all. Running the hoses just took a long time. Not probably worth recording, but I've routed all the hoses from the valves forward. I've got them managed here in some nylon sheathing, and a couple of clips to hold them in place, and they come forward to the various functions. So my setup right now, and I've been back and forth on exactly how I want to do it, but what I've decided is the outside levers, this is the blade lower arm lift up and down, and the far left one is for the other side. This inside lever picks up the whole blade, so it's this tilt cylinder here. So, and then the inside one on the left is the blade angle, so that one goes to this cylinder here, which angles the blade. I figure I'll be moving forward and picking up the blade and coming back more frequently than I will be changing the angle. And the expectation is I would operate the track controls with the left hand and be able to tilt the blade up and down with the right hand. A lot of fittings to manage to get all of the hoses to come up underneath the bottom of this valve and work, but managed to get them. They're all tight. Everything is set up, basically ready to start the engine. Again, bleed all of the hydraulic cylinders and test out all the functions. I think it looks pretty good. I'm pleased with the way the blade mount turned out. So I'm going to wrap up the video at this point, and we'll come back next week. I'll keep you in some suspense. So we'll come back next week and fire it up and operate it. The weather is really bad outside. It's been pouring rain, so I'm not in a position to take it out in this weather. But got a lot accomplished. This particular episode has taken a lot longer to prepare because of waiting for parts. So a lot more elapsed time in this episode than any previous episode. I mean, over 2 weeks. We'll come back next time, running the tractor, bleeding the cylinders, operating the blade, all the functions, verifying they all operate, and weather permitting, we'll take this outside and push some dirt around. We've got more to do on this tractor. We've got grousers. I've got some engine compartment screens and half a dozen other things. We're going to keep working on this, maybe not as steadily as we have been the past 6 or 8 months, but she's by no means finished at this point. All right, so that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to keep up with what's going on here, got a lot of other improvements to make to this tractor, and we'll be back next week. We'll be back with whatever happens next week. How about that? All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.